Hello and welcome, I'm Thomas Porteous and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at the top headlines of the hour. Venezuela's Interior Minister Diosdado Cabello says 100 people were killed in the US attack that removed President Nicolas Maduro from power. The army confirms 23 military deaths, while officials and Cuba say members of Maduro's security forces and allied groups were also killed. The United States says it will indefinitely control Venezuelan oil sales and decide how the proceeds are used. President Trump says Caracas will hand over 30 to 50 million barrels as US forces seize 2 sanctions-linked vessels. Colombian President Gustavo Petro strongly condemns the US attack on Venezuela and the capture of President Nicolas Maduro, calling it a violation of regional sovereignty. The criticism deepens a war of words with US President Donald Trump, straining historically close ties between Colombia and the United States. The Lebanese army says it has completed the first phase of disarming Hezbollah between the Israeli border and the Litani River. The army says it now controls areas south of the Litani, except positions occupied by Israel, and plans to expand the operation nationwide. Russian strikes overnight leave more than 1 million people without power, water or heating in Ukraine's Dnipropetrovsk region, according to officials. Restoration Minister Oleksiy Kubela says repairs are underway to restore heat and water supplies. Saudi Arabia accuses the United Arab Emirates of smuggling Yemeni separatist leader Ayadronos al-Subani out of Yemen and flying him to Abu Dhabi. The UAE offers no immediate response as tensions rise over its backing of the Southern Transitional Council amid battlefield advances. A US immigration agent fatally shoots a 37-year-old woman in Minneapolis. The Department of Homeland Security says she tried to run over ICE agents in self-defense. Mayor Jacob Frey rejects that account, condemning the shooting as an abuse of power. Australia announces a royal commission into the mass shooting that killed 15 people at Bondi Beach. Prime Minister Albanese says the federal inquiry aims to promote unity and help the country heal. Well, those are the top stories of the hour, and we dive straight into the top of this hour, and we start in the Middle East. Turkey has signalled its readiness to assist Syria in Aleppo if requested, amid escalating violence in the Aleppo city. A Syrian soldier and 4 civilians, including a child, were killed in attacks by the SDF, while dozens more were wounded. Drone strikes targeted army positions, residential areas, hospitals, schools, and even a fuel station, forcing displacement in parts of the city. Syrian authorities suspended classes and government work to protect citizens, while the army retaliated against SDF positions. Officials say these attacks violate the March 10th agreement, which aimed to integrate the SDF into state institutions. Turkey's parliament speaker confirmed that if Syria requests help, Ankara will provide support to end the conflict and stabilize the city. Okay, this is of course an ongoing situation inside Aleppo, where reported 4 civilians were killed in attacks by the SDF. Turkey has signalled its readiness to assist Syria in the escalating violence in order to end the ongoing conflict there. Drone strikes targeted army positions and of course residential infrastructure, including hospitals, schools and even a fuel station, forcing mass displacement in the Syrian city. Syrian authorities meanwhile have suspended classes and government work to protect citizens, while the Syrian army retaliates against SDF positions. Officials have said that these attacks violate the March the 10th agreement, which aimed to integrate the SDF forces into state institutions. Now, responding to this, Turkey's parliament speaker has confirmed that if Syria requests help, then Ankara will step in and provide support to end the conflict and stabilize the city. Aleppo, of course, even post the Bashar al-Assad era, has been subject to violence, a mainly Alawite region, which has seen mass violence in the past, including huge sectarian violence earlier on in 2025. Syria's civil fighting does still continue as even after Bashar al-Assad's fall. Okay, now we are joined by Professor Ephraim Imbar, a senior researcher at the Jerusalem Institute for Strategy and Security, joining us live from Jerusalem. Thank you very much, Professor Imbar, for joining us here on NewsX World. What does Turkey's signal of readiness here to intervene in Syria tell us about Ankara's evolving regional doctrine in Syria?
Turkey of today sees Syria as part of the Ottoman Empire, and it has a military presence in parts of Syria. Actually, those parts, particularly in the east, have been Turkified. The banks are Turkish, the post office is Turkish, the currency is Turkish, and now it is busy trying to limit the military power of the Kurds in Aleppo primarily, and the current regime in Syria is to some extent a proxy of Turkey. It is supported by Turkey, and it serves Turkish interests.
And how damaging are these clashes to Syria's new government headed by al-Shara, the new president that was appointed after Bashar al-Assad's fall?
Well, al-Shara tries to centralize his control, but there are minorities in Syria which are very much afraid of the Shara rule, particularly the Kurds, the Druze in the south, as well as Alawites on the coast. And there were massacres by government forces of Alawites, of Druze in the south, and they are very suspicious of the government, who is headed by Shara, a former jihadist, who is not very tolerant of groups that are not strictly Muslim.
Professor Imbar, stay with us as we move over to Iran for our next story. And the 12 days of protests have shaken Iran under Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, already battling economic crises after years of sanctions and recovering after the June war against Israel. The movement, which originated with a shutdown on the Tehran Bazaar on December the 28th after the rial plunged to record lows, has spread nationwide and is now being marked by larger scale demonstrations. Authorities have blamed unrest on rioters, and the judiciary chief has vowed there would be no leniency in bringing them to justice. Reza Pahlavi, the son of the Shah ousted by the 1979 Islamic Revolution and a key exiled opposition figure, said that the turnout during Wednesday's protest had been unprecedented and has called for new major protests today. Professor Imbar, of course, we've seen these protests going on for 12 days now. Are these structurally different to other protests that we've seen in the past?
It's not clear that it's much different than the hijab demonstrations that lasted longer. It is not clear yet if there is any reluctance among the security forces of Iran to shoot demonstrators. I think it's too early to judge this demonstration as a turning point that might lead to the fall of the regime. We also don't see any disputes in the ruling elite that might encourage the demonstrators. And basically, the demonstrators have no organized leadership and that can organize in a better way the demonstrations and maybe provide some kind of military resistance to the regime forces.
And how much do you think these protests are still being driven by the economic woes that the people of Iran are facing? Is this turning into something else?
Obviously, the demonstrations were triggered by the terrible economic situation of Iran, lack of water, lack of electricity, and fall of the local currency. But after all, the Iranians suffer from the tyranny of this regime, and this is an additional cause for trying to revolt and demonstrate against the regime.
And how is Israel viewing these protests? Of course, we've seen Benjamin Netanyahu signal support for the people in the streets of Iran. What are people saying there?
Well, I think that every democratic nation looks in a sympathetic way to what is happening in Iran. After all, the religious tyrannical regime in Tehran is not acceptable to any democracy, and they would like to see the end of the suffering of the Iranian people. But sympathy is not enough. Nobody is going to do something substantial in order to change the situation in Iran.
Yeah, exactly. What options does the regime actually have left here to tackle these issues that the protesters are facing?
We have to remember that Iran is under regime sanction regime, and as this is one additional burden on the economy. Of course, there is a lot of diplomatic discourse against the regime, but this is not enough to topple the regime that is ready to shoot at the demonstrators. So in the absence of organized opposition in Iran, the West can't do much but wait for counter-revolutions that its roots are in the Iranian political entity.
Professor Ephraim Imbar, thank you very much for joining us here on NewsX World. It's been a pleasure to talk to you. We now move on, and days after threatening Colombia with possible military action, US President Donald Trump says arrangements are being made for Colombian President Gustavo Petro to visit the White House. The announcement follows a phone call between the two leaders, their first since Trump returned to office in January. Both sides described the call as respectful, signaling a possible easing of tensions after weeks of sharp exchanges. Trump has repeatedly accused Petro's government of enabling cocaine trafficking into the United States and previously imposed sanctions on the Colombian leader. Just days ago, Trump referred to Petro as a sick man and suggested military action against Colombia's government. Petro, Colombia's first leftist president, told supporters in Bogota that he requested a restart of dialogue with Washington and confirmed the call was the first direct contact between the two leaders. Relations have been strained further by US anti-drug operations in the Caribbean and disagreements over Gaza, Venezuela and US foreign policy. No date has yet been set for the proposed White House meeting. Joining me now is my colleague, Kriti Mehta. She joins me live from the newsroom. Kriti, thank you very much. What more can you tell us about the situation with the two leaders, President Donald Trump and Gustavo Petro of Colombia?
Well, Tom, as you would know, the developments are rather interesting, given that it's only a few days earlier when Trump had called Petro a sick man, like you said, who likes to make cocaine and sell it to the US. And let's not also forget that Petro was also the first leader from the international community to call out Trump's actions in Venezuela, and he was also the first leader to call the United Nations to set up a meeting after Trump's military actions in Venezuela. Now, even if these two leaders meet together, we don't know if there will be a level playing field. This is coming after Trump has already captured Maduro. There are reactions that have been coming in from the international community on that regard. And of course, this statement of Trump can't really be taken on face value, because let's remind our viewers that even Maduro had said that he was ready for a dialogue just before the US strikes in Venezuela and the capture of Maduro and his wife by Donald Trump in the operation that we have reported up until now. So it remains to be seen how this meeting goes out. Of course, the ties between Petro and Trump have seen the test of time. We don't know what has really sparked this change in tone of Trump and what really is his plan of action. All of us know how Trump remains one of the most unpredictable world leaders. Nobody can really guess what's next for Donald Trump as far as his actions are concerned. What we do know for sure is that Colombia is under threat, and which is why it asked for the United Nations to meet. How will Trump go on from here is a matter of time that we will all be looking out for.
Kriti, thank you very much for that input. We'll of course keep our viewers updated on how that situation unfurls. Move on now and over to South Asia, and Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi chaired a round table with 12 Indian AI startups at his residence in New Delhi ahead of the India AI Impact Summit 2026. The startups qualifying for the AI for all presented innovations in areas included multilingual AI models, generative 3D content, healthcare diagnostics, engineering simulations, and advanced analytics. Startup leaders highlighted India's growing AI ecosystem and its rising role in global AI innovation. They praised the government's strong support for AI development and deployment. Prime Minister Modi emphasized that AI entrepreneurs are CEO architects of India's future and called for Indian AI models to promote regional languages, indigenous content, and ethical, unbiased, and transparent practices. He assured full government support for startups and urged them to lead globally with affordable, inclusive, and frugal AI solutions. The roundtable was attended by AI startup CEOs, representatives, and union ministers Ashwini Vaishnaw and Jitin Prasada. Joining us now to discuss this further is Gautam Mukherjee, a senior journalist. He's joining us live from New Delhi. Gautam, always a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you very much for joining us. Is India here positioning itself and its AI as a pillar of global influence?
It would certainly like that to happen. And given that much of the AI development in the United States has also been engineered by ethnic Indians, it is quite probable that with good and solid government backing here in India, that AI could emerge as a major output from India as well. It is certainly something that the world needs, and India, which is, which has been very prominent in IT for over a decade now in particular, cannot afford to miss the AI bus.
And Gautam, of course, do you think India risks provoking any pushback from superpowers like the United States and China with the way that things are going?
Pushbacks in terms of India's rise are becoming quite commonplace, and so that may well occur insofar as it goes, but you cannot stop technology and its applications. And if you want to pressurize India in general, well, India is going to have to find ways and means to withstand that pressure and find alternate means.
And what more can you tell us about the India AI Impact Summit 2026? What more can we expect from it?
I think it's more of a focus on something that is the flavor of the season and something that India wants to participate in. We've done this in a number of areas, for example, space exploration, and we have done it very successfully. The Prime Minister mentioned frugal engineering. It is a hallmark of India's way of doing these things. You know, AI is often considered to be very energy intensive, water intensive, and so on. Maybe there are other ways to do this. The Chinese have already done some work which has half the cost of what is being produced in the United States. And India, arriving late at the party, will get the benefit of all that has passed before and take it forward on its own steam.
And Gautam, Modi there was speaking about emphasizing AI for all and frugal innovation. Can this realistically differentiate from the likes of the United States and China when it comes to this approach?
I'm certain it can, which is why he has said it. And, the United States has produced AI, but applications of AI are still at a nascent stage. China, likewise, is trying to figure out all the ways in which AI can be used, both for itself and in terms of export, in terms of its relationship with variety of countries. We are probably going to develop AI mainly for our own use, which is vast. The Indian market itself has a large appetite and requirement for AI, so we'll attend to that. And in the process, we may also be able to contribute to the global advance of AI.
Gautam Mukherjee, thank you very much for taking the time and joining us. It's always a pleasure to speak to you. We now move on, and Chinese authorities have extradited Chen Zhi, founder of Prince Group, from Cambodia, where he has been arrested over alleging multi-billion-dollar scams. He is now under investigation, and warrants for key members of his criminal network are expected soon. Meanwhile, Prince Bank, a subsidiary of his group, has been placed under liquidation though customers are still reported to be able to access their funds. Chen has been facing allegations of directing large-scale cryptocurrency fraud and human trafficking operations across Cambodia. However, the United States has indicted him on wire fraud and money laundering linked to over 127,000 Bitcoin, worth more than $11 billion. Chen previously held an advisory role to Cambodian leaders, but his Cambodian citizenship was revoked last month. Let's listen in.
打击网赌电诈犯罪是国际社会的共同责任。一段时间以来，中方同柬埔寨等国积极合作，打击跨境电信网络诈骗犯罪，取得了显著的成效。中方愿意同包括柬埔寨在内的周边国家加大执法合作力度，维护人民的生命财产安全和地区国家的交往合作秩序。
Well, that's all that we have time for this hour. Keep watching NewsX World for more international news updates.